will say, if it wasn't for Elon buying Twitter, I don't know if my account would still be there, or we'd be even like able to stream this discussion on Twitter. So
yeah. And he's previously engaged with some of my tweets about Ukraine. He seems to get it there, and he's not afraid to defy the neocon establishment on Ukraine. But obviously on Israel, that's the one space where no dissent is allowed, and you have to bow down if you're in that elite class.
Just like RFK, who is getting boosted by Elon.
Yep,
RFK is not actually an independent candidate. He is controlled by the same forces that control Biden and Trump.
We're still waiting for RFK Jr. to follow through on his agreement to debate you. He made that months ago. Debate you on Israel-Palestine. He hasn't followed through on that. I know that Judge Napolitano recently renewed that invitation, offered to host it on a show.
Yeah, he did. And soon after, I went uptown here in DC and did a great event with Jill Stein, who's on the Green Party ticket, who's going to be on the ballot in many states, I think in over 20 states. And she is asking voters to sign a pledge to to prevent genocide, pledge to reject genocide. Don't vote for any candidate who supports what's happening in Gaza right now. I think she's the most viable anti-genocide candidate. She's polling at 6% in Michigan, as I said before. But let's stay on this theme of the cynical exploitation of the Holocaust in order to advance genocide. Watch this. This is bonkers. This is one of the most insane pieces of propaganda that I've seen since October 7th, and there's been many of them.
Really know what happened. You really know what happened on October 7th. You've been lied to. We all have. Palestinians didn't behead babies.
What? How can they even say that?
Yeah, we were there. What?
You were there?
They can deny it all they want, but something can never be erased.
He's pointing to, a grandfather's pointing to a number on his arm that he got in a death camp. It says, from the horror of the Holocaust to the October 7th massacre, denying atrocities committed against Jews is anti-Semitism. This is produced by Cyberwell, an Israeli spirit. And these are 3 former hostages in Gaza with Avigdor Neumann, who was released from Auschwitz in 1945. I mean, I can't even... That is so cynical. And by the way, the video they're watching on their phone was by Propaganda and Company. Many of you might follow them on Twitter. An explainer they did based on our reporting on October 7th and just all the lies Israel told.
Yeah, one of those lies was that talking about one of the victims on October 7th being someone with a number tattooed on their arm as if they were a Holocaust survivor. And that was recently fact-checked on Israeli television as being yet another lie. And we can show that clip, although it would require us to translate it for our audio audience. But Israeli television recently did this debunking of several critical lies told by Israeli soldiers and officials in the aftermath of October 7th. And that was one of them. And of course, that lie was repeated around the world, that this Israeli soldier coming across a victim who with a number tattooed on their arms, that suggesting that they were a Holocaust survivor, turned out to be a complete fabrication.
Well, I got that video up, but let me just say about that last video. I mean, while it's kind of an honor to have our work or an explainer of our work identified as such a threat to the Israeli narrative on October 7th, this video is one of the most dangerous pieces of propaganda because it's equating proven lies by Israel to documented facts about crimes committed against Jews during World War II when they were subjected to genocide. So this piece of propaganda is actually fodder for Holocaust deniers. And you see it. I do see it on social media. Holocaust deniers are saying, look at how much the Israelis, or they'll even say how much the Jews have lied about October 7th. Do you think they lied about anything else? And Israel and Zionists and Zionism are happy with that, because anti-Semitism is the fuel for Zionism. It is the oil of Israel's occupation machine. It's really the only thing that can justify the preservation of an exclusivist Jewish state and the permanent warehousing of Palestinians, is the presence of anti-Semitism. So they actually want to spread Holocaust denial. They want anti-Semitism to be not only a fact of life, but to spread and grow. And that's what's so disgusting about this ad, and frightening.
And meanwhile, I mean, how can you not look at the images coming out of Gaza or read some of the accounts and not compare it to the Nazi Holocaust? The other day, I was reading an account of someone who was talking about trying to search somewhere for food, so anything, because they're starving there, and they ended up reporting that they found a lemon, and that's what they brought back to their family. And also, there's been now stories about people having to turn to animal feed to be able to feed themselves. I mean, this is Holocaust level.
One of our former guests at the Grayzone, Motassem Dahlul, who is a journalist in Gaza, he's recently reported having to survive off animal feed. He's in northern Gaza.
I mean, that's out of a story from the Nazi Holocaust. That's something out of Maus, that famous graphic novel about Jews during the Nazi genocide. But yet now the Jewish state is inflicting one today.
Yeah,
while claiming to still compare themselves to Holocaust victims.
Yeah, I think there's a book called, like, I Have an Apple in My Pantry, a Holocaust book I have upstairs here by a Holocaust survivor. It's like the same thing. It's fending off starvation and hiding from death all around you. The comparison is impossible not to make. It's also it sort of makes sense. When a state absorbs psychologically the spirit and the history of the Holocaust continuously within its own population, and teaches its youth as they grow up that if they give a single inch to the outclass of Palestinians, that they will be subjected to genocide, and that they use the Holocaust as a tool to frighten their population, it almost makes sense that when they send those youth as they grow up to confront the outclass who's portrayed as Nazis, that they would become a sort of Einsatzgruppen reenactment society, reenacting the horrors of the Holocaust against those who they're told are going to exterminate them. And so, as Edward Said said, Palestinians are the victims of the victims. They are indirect victims of the Holocaust. And they're not just victims of Israelis. They're victims of Germany. They're victims of the United States. They're victims of all of Western Europe, which didn't want to deal with what they considered the Jewish problem in their own midst. So they forced it onto the Palestinians' backs. And so we heard all of these lies after October 7th, as you said, Aaron, deliberately invoking the Holocaust, someone with a number on their arm killed, or a baby baked in an oven. They were lies, but they were designed to exaggerate the crimes of Hamas in order to mobilize the Jewish Israeli population to commit genocide. And they're finally being called out in Israeli mainstream media, which is crazy. We'll talk about why in a second, but watch this. I guess I'll have to turn down the volume and sort of translate it, since we only have subtitles and we have people who are just experiencing this stream through audio. We're going to be talking about we'll be able to end the negotiations deadlock. But before that, watch the following footage of the Kafir Brigade commander from Channel 14. When I arrived in Kibbutz Be'eri, there I encountered two main images of the battle, the enemy's brutality. One is a nursery school with innocent children, and they butchered all the kids. They killed them. You see the kids inside the house? 8 babies died. And another image that caught my attention is when I saw Jenya, may she rest in peace, an elderly woman from Kibbutz Be'eri, and I see the number engraved on her arm. And you say she went through the Holocaust, Auschwitz, and in the end died in Kibbutz Be'eri. That's not something that You can't even understand it. Well, no 8 babies were killed in Berry, the host says on Channel 13. According to the kibbutz spokesperson, and there's no woman named Jenya in Berry, no woman with number on her arm. Here's some more footage of a soldier speaking. There are also children here, babies. He's like on the verge of tears, hanged on a laundry line, really on one line. It was very hard to see. When I saw it, it shocked me. You don't really understand what you're seeing in front of your eyes. Is it a picture or is it really reality? It's very, very hard to understand. The soldiers talking about a supposed event in Kfar Aza, but in Kfar Aza, they made it clear a long time ago this event didn't happen. He said the things he was told that that didn't happen on a tour of foreign news journalists who came there. And pay attention to what the police spokesman said to the foreign media not long ago.
Cut open. Guys, the things that happen here are so sick. This is not a Netflix show, and it's not a cable news show. None of that. No, this is real life.
This also didn't happen. So many terrible, cruel things happened. Some of the most cruel things that can be done to a human being on October 7th. Mickey Rosenthal, why were these things that didn't happen said? In order to increase the magnitude of the hatred for Hamas, as if it's necessary, as if what happened wasn't enough. But why are people inventing these events? The answer is that maybe they heard it as a rumor, and maybe that's the most important thing to say it in this context. The war is not only military and not only political, it's mainly media, and I'm not sure it's not the most important part. So that's pretty much all we need to see from that clip. But at the end, they elicit a statement from the IDF spokesman apologizing for the lies that Israeli officers told after October 7th. There's no apology for us after being attacked again and again and again as conspiracists and master manipulators. And then they said, this is actually giving, making the deniers happy. We're helping the deniers of October 7th by lying so much. It's like,
you know, he says there, we had to do this to increase the magnitude of the hatred for Hamas.
Yeah.
No, this was done to justify a genocide. That's what this is done. That's what he means by hatred of Hamas.
Well, the magnitude of Hamas had to be exaggerated in order to create space for it.
Right, exactly. And there's no apology to the 25,000 plus Palestinians massacred on the backs of these lies and many others that we've debunked and that still haven't been debunked in Israel, but maybe one day they will. But first of all, note how this kind of debunking, we don't see this in U.S. media because it's so vital for the U.S. establishment media to maintain a firewall around the facts that challenge the narrative that underpin the Biden administration's support for Israel's genocide. Because many of these lies have been repeated by top U.S. officials, including Joe Biden and Antony Blinken. And so therefore, inside the U.S., there's still a firewall that exists that doesn't even exist right now inside of Israel. And then it raises another question. What else are they lying about? Well, it's pretty obvious, as you can see from the reporting that we've done, that this claim of rape being used as a weapon of war by Hamas on a mass scale is a fabrication because all the available evidence undermines the allegation. And of course, none of that matters to especially the U.S. political class, which keeps on repeating all these claims as if they're, as if it's the air we breathe. But again, it's all lies, and amazing how the truth comes out in Israel, but cannot come out in the U.S.